I divorced my husband. The reason was something unexpected. He had an affair with our son's wife. However, I felt lighter after the divorce. That's because my husband had a habit of gambling and was reckless with money. I found out later that he married me for my money. Originally, my entire family worked in the medical field, and I'm no exception. But when we got married, my husband quit his job. And when our son got injured and was hospitalized, my husband... My name is Susan Greenfield. Today marks 1 year since my son passed away. I'm currently looking through my son's childhood albums, lost in memories. This story is about my time with my deceased son and my ex-husband. I'm currently 54 years old, working as an emergency medical technician at a university hospital. Despite the high salary, my job comes with very few days off. It seems the shortage of medical staff is far from being resolved. My ex-husband, John, is 4 years older than me. Even though we are divorced now, meeting him was undoubtedly the worst part of my life. I met John at a matchmaking party since I was really busy with work at the time. John, muscular and buff, was working as a delivery driver at the time. However, John's attitude changed drastically after we got married. He quit his job as soon as we got married and started to live off my money.
Hey, Susan, give me some money.
What, again? I wonder how many times this has happened, but John's gaze was intimidating and I couldn't stand up to him.
Hurry up and give it to me. Don't worry, I'll pay you back 10 times more.
Saying that, my husband probably left the house to go gambling. As soon as he returned, he opened the front door with a loud noise.
Damn it! That slot machine must have been rigged.
I cautiously spoke to my visibly irritated husband. Did you lose again? Then my husband glared at me and said this.
Isn't it obvious? I lost all the $300 you gave me.
Ever since we got married, I've been living as if I'm walking on eggshells every day. He hasn't been physically abusive, but his harsh tone of voice is enough to instill fear. I've thought about divorce countless times, but I didn't want to worry my son, who had just become a doctor. My son, David, is a 27-year-old intern this year. Coming from a family entirely in the medical field, it seems he has dreamt of being a doctor since he was young. He went to a 6-year college and is now working hard every day at a general hospital. Recently, it seems my son has found someone he could call his fiancée. At least until the wedding is over, I'll try to hold on. With that thought, I go through each day planning to divorce John someday. But my husband's actions and words only escalated. I have a night shift today, so I'm leaving now. Then my husband approached me in his pajamas. What? Without saying anything, my husband just stared at me, so I asked.
You haven't finished the laundry yet, have you? Also, the bath hasn't been cleaned.
My husband coldly said that to me. What he said was almost enough to make me faint. I work as a doctor and also take care of the household chores. In contrast, my husband is unemployed. He doesn't help around the house at all. Moreover, it infuriated me that he seemed to think that household chores were solely my responsibility. I wish you would do that yourself. I accidentally voiced the thoughts I had been keeping to myself. Then my husband said,
Huh? You know you can go to work with peace of mind because I'm here, right? Show some gratitude.
His retort, which could be seen as a snapback, left me more astounded than angry. I need to go now. You should just take care of it. Also, I won't be coming back tonight because of my night shift. As I was about to leave the house, he called out to me again.
Then at least leave me some money for my meals.
Saying that, my husband stretched his hand out to me. I really didn't have any more time. I had so many things I wanted to say back to him, but knowing that arguing back at this point was pointless, I handed him some money from my wallet. Then, without waiting for a reply, I left the house. The problem occurred when I was on night duty. A nurse came to me. Dr. Greenfield, please come to the nurse station urgently. It seemed to be something serious. Perhaps a patient's condition has suddenly worsened. I rushed over immediately. As soon as I arrived at the station, another nurse told me to take a phone call. I took the receiver and said, "Hello, this is Greenfield." Then I heard a doctor, who was from another hospital, speak on the other end of the phone.
"Is this Susan Greenfield? I'm calling from the hospital where your son David works. The thing is, your son David has..."
Hearing the details, I felt as though my soul had left my body. The nurse looked at me with a concerned expression as I stood there, stunned, holding the receiver. "I understand. I'll come by after my shift ends tomorrow." I hung up the phone, but my voice lacked strength. "My son, David is paralyzed from the waist down." After receiving the call from the doctor, it seems my son tried to catch a patient who was about to fall but lost his balance and fell down the stairs in the process. He hit his back hard and fell head first. Losing consciousness, he ended up completely paralyzed from the waist down. After my night shift, I rushed to the hospital where my son works. I announced my name at the reception and hurried to my son's room. On the way, I ran into my husband. "Oh, what are you doing here?"
"Same as you. I came after the hospital called."
We exchanged only those words and entered the room. There, beside my bedridden son, was a woman.
"And who might you be?"
The woman turned around when my husband spoke to her. She was the beautiful, long-haired fiancée of my son, Mary Wilson. I recognized her immediately from the photos my son had emailed me. She is 26 years old, a year younger than my son. "Hello, I am Mary Wilson, David's fiancée." She greeted us politely, and I greeted her back in response. Then I approached my son. He was still unconscious, connected to a ventilator. A ventilator? As I looked at my son, puzzled, the doctor entered the room. My son is paralyzed from the waist down. Why does he need a ventilator? Isn't he just unconscious?" I asked the doctor, feeling anxious. My son was supposed to have hurt his back, which would only affect his lower body. I thought he would wake up soon. The doctor then began to explain.
"Since then, we found that his lungs and brain were also damaged. It seems he hit his head really hard while falling down the stairs."
Upon hearing those words, we all got quiet. As a surgeon, I didn't know what to say. The surgery seemed to have been successful, but his condition was still critical. We were also told that the ICU was full, so he had been moved to a general ward. For a month, I visited my son's room almost every day. At first, I ran into his fiancée, Mary Wilson, a few times, but gradually I saw less and less of her. At the same time, I saw my husband less and less at home, but with my busy job, I couldn't afford to worry about such things. Yet, as if fate wanted to rub it in my face, I was shocked to see Mary Wilson and my husband holding hands and entering an inn together. Why are those two together, holding hands? The inn wasn't far from our house. It was on my way to work and well known in the area. I managed to calm my confused mind and asked my husband when I saw him. "Hey, the other day I saw you and Mary Wilson entering an inn together. What was that about?" My husband looked back at me, surprised at first, then scratched his head.
"Damn it. That's why I said we should have gone to a different inn."
He muttered that and sighed deeply. "Are you by any chance having an affair with Mary Wilson?" I asked hesitantly, and my husband answered nonchalantly.
"Yeah, that's right. How could I ignore such a beauty like her? David will be bedridden forever, and Mary said the same."
I felt as if I had been hit in the back of the head with a hammer. The same thing?
I don't know if she's aware of her own beauty, but she says she can't forgive being ignored for so long. Women are scary, you know, and apparently there are no exceptions, even for illness.
I was devastated to learn the true nature of my son's fiancée. Although she seemed polite at first, I never imagined her inner self to be so tumultuous. Feeling the injustice done to my son made me uncontrollably verbalize my anger towards the two of them. Enough. Let's get a divorce. When I said that, my husband agreed without hesitation. From his attitude, I realized he had lost interest in me a long time ago. This realization brought even more anger and sadness. However, my husband continued speaking without giving me a moment to dwell on those feelings.
You can claim property division if you want, but don't expect much. After all, I'm unemployed. I married you because I knew you were earning a high income.
Is it okay to say whatever he wants just because we're getting divorced? Already stretched thin emotionally, his cold words kept coming, making it clear he didn't care about me or even our son. You're not even worth the effort of claiming property division, I retorted, trying to sound tough. But it seemed not to affect him at all. He just smirked and said,
That's a relief.
While my son was fighting for his life, my husband and my son's wife indulged in their affair. No wonder I stopped seeing Mary Wilson around. To think that this was what was happening? Hearing this from my husband made me resolve to be the one true ally my son had. Yet contrary to my wishes, my son's condition never improved. Every visit was met with the sight of my son, eyes closed, not waking up. Still, I continued to visit the hospital, hoping he would open his eyes one day. 7 years passed without my son waking up, and then one day as I was taking a taxi to the hospital, my phone rang. Hello? What? I froze, phone still to my ear. I distinctly remember it was raining that day. The sound of the rain outside couldn't reach me at that moment. Arriving at the hospital and heading to his room, I found the heart rate monitor turned off and David's face was completely white, out of color. My... David... As I approached, weakly muttering, one of the doctors spoke to me.
I'm sorry, but David passed away 10 minutes ago.
The call I received in the taxi was to inform me that my son had gone into cardiac arrest. CPR had been performed by the doctors while I was on my way. One of the doctors was even sweating from his forehead. Despite their best efforts, my son had gone to heaven. I had waited 7 years, hoping he would wake up one day, but my son never came back. When my son's stretcher, on his way to the morgue, passed by me, I broke down and cried for the first time. Everything after that happened so fast. I took a leave from work and began the funeral preparations, which kept me busy. On the day of the funeral, I met someone. Yes, it was my ex-husband, John.
Oh, if it isn't...
He started to speak upon seeing my face, but then stopped, apparently forgetting my name. It's Susan.
Oh, right. I remembered it started with S.
He insulted me like that as soon as we met. His behavior was as inappropriate as ever, especially at a setting like a funeral. I don't know how you found out, but you have some nerve showing up. Our son was fighting alone while you were having an affair. Seeing this man brought all my repressed bitterness to the brink of explosion, but the words that came from my ex-husband only further inflamed my anger.
I'm not really interested in the funeral. What we're here for is...
Before he could finish, a woman continued his sentence from behind. It was the very person who had an affair with my ex-husband, Mary Wilson. We came here to claim the inheritance.
Hey, don't cut in.
It's fine. You're too slow, John. I just stood there looking at them. It seemed that even after 7 years, their relationship was still going strong, and they were even flirting in front of me. Enough, both of you. My words made them stop. Then...
always so noisy. Just give us the inheritance already,
was what they demanded. John's face was smirking, followed by Mary's. However, I couldn't help but laugh at their demand. What's so funny? To their retort, I began to reveal the whole truth. You really think everything will go your way, don't you? The world isn't as sweet as you think. I managed to say this despite my cheeks twitching from trying not to laugh too hard. Naturally, they were furious.
Huh? What are you trying to say?
About the inheritance, David's life insurance and such. It's long gone. Their eyes widened, looking at each other in disbelief. What do you mean, gone? You're both so greedy and vile. David was the complete opposite, a true role model doctor.
So, what are you trying to say?
Our argument attracted the attention of the funeral attendees, who were trying to deduce what was happening from our conversation. David told me before he got life insurance. If I die before Mom, I want all my savings, life insurance, everything to go to UNICEF. And that's what I did. After David passed, I donated all his inheritance to UNICEF as he wished. There's not a single cent left for you two.
What?
John's face went pale instantly. It seemed they were seriously counting on David's inheritance. Mary's complexion matched his. John, what do we do? We bought a new sports car thinking the inheritance would cover it. John responded weakly. So that was it. I finally understood their fixation on the inheritance. They were counting on it to pay off their car loan. But how did they manage to purchase it in the first place? What do you do for work now? Surprisingly, they answered honestly.
I work for a moving company.
I'm a part-timer. I thought so. Impossible. Puzzled, I asked them another question. A sports car would cost around $20,000, right? There would be a screening process. Even if you passed that, how did you manage the payment? They looked at each other again. Then John answered.
From a shady place. They prepared the paperwork and money when I said I'd pay back in a month.
The moment I heard that, it felt as if time had briefly stopped. And then I couldn't help but feel laughter bubbling up inside me. That's hilarious. I see, yes, that makes sense. You could borrow from there. Stop joking around. What are you laughing at? This is serious for us. She spoke sternly to me as I laughed, but her tone didn't scare me at all. The scariest thing for them was the future waiting ahead. Even if there had been an inheritance, I wouldn't have given it to you two. How could you think there would be enough for a sports car?
Huh?
Such a large sum couldn't possibly exist at David's age. Buying a car without understanding that is just foolish. As I spoke, they looked utterly defeated, their faces a picture of dumbfounded misery. I pressed on. Abandoning your son as he hovered between life and death, prioritizing your own selfish desires? This is what you two deserve. You'll just have to do your best from here on out. After my words, they seemed to finally grasp the gravity of the situation, their mouths agape, unable to respond. The other attendees cast cold looks their way. Thus, the two were escorted out by security, and my son's funeral proceeded with those who genuinely mourned him. Has it been a year already since then? Today, on the first anniversary of my son's death, I murmured this while looking through his album. Since then, my ex-husband and my son's former fiancée have been hounded by debt collectors. In fact, debt collectors have even come to me, but after showing them the divorce papers and explaining that we were no longer related, they left quietly. The two made extravagant purchases based on their wrongful assumption of an inheritance. The consequences were naturally severe, a culmination of their past misdeeds, I suppose. I doubt I'll ever interact with those two again. If by some chance we do meet, my first action would be to call the police. Or perhaps a punch might come first. David, find good people in heaven. I whispered this to a photo of my son from his childhood. Of course, no response came. But in my heart, my son lives on forever. After finishing with the album, I resolved to live my life to the fullest, also for my son's sake.